found bits and pieces of things here and there since the overlords have been gone. But, for the most part, they were kind of also left in the dark quite a bit. So we have the really bad people. We have determined, and that's how they got their positions. We have the majority of people, and these are people that, they can fluctuate towards really, more closer to the bad side sometimes and closer to the good side sometimes. And, they would carry a certain amount of dark energy and a certain amount of light energy. And, they would pretty much be the status quo people. They get up every day, they go to work, they have a family, they pay their taxes, they feed the system. Not only do they feed, these people and all their corporations, but they also fed the dark overlords. So they make perfect, they're a perfect addition to the chocolate cake. Maybe they're the cherries on top, who knows? So over here you have what we call, in an algebraic function, we call these people the outliers. And an outlier is a person who shines. And a person who has the ability to shine brightly no matter what is going on in the world. No matter how many of these people they face or those people they face, they still are the ones who shine bright. These are also your creators. So you have the ability to still create even though we're in a dark age. You are also the people that are the inventors. You invent amazing technologies, cures for disease, and all of these types of things. And we've seen so many of those people publicly, pass away, or something happens to them, or they're not permitted to create their project for whatever reason. So these are what the system would refer to in a dark age, in a dark time. It would refer to these as the outliers. These are the ones for what you would call a hot list for the AI systems. They would look at these people and watch them very, very closely. Now, in addition to watching people very closely, they had a lot of analytic systems. And some of them the humans had access to, like DARPA and other SSP or secret space programs. And some of them they didn't. Because of course, the overlords didn't want the humans to realize they were just as much a part of the video game as the rest of us were. And I look at ages and timelines as video games. We were running as little avatars around this planet based on what an AI system wanted us to do. So breaking down governments and all of this stuff, yeah, that's a good idea. Don't get me wrong. And, they really don't do anything anyway. And I've even asked some of them, what is it you do? What do you do? Let's take the people out of the question and just say governments, you are not responsible for people. Poof, because they really aren't anyway. And what is it that you do on the daily that requires $2 trillion? And I guarantee you that no one can answer you. How is your budget $1.8 trillion? How is it $2 trillion? Or, more or less, it doesn't matter. It's in the hundreds of billions, regardless of what country you're in. And why do you need this money? Why? What do you do? You employ in the U.S. around 22 million people, but what do you do? Do you manage anything? Do you build anything? Do you create anything? No. Governments are responsible, and I'm running out of room here, so I'm going to move over to a page. In our structures, governments are responsible for destroying things. First and foremost, whether they know it or not, governments are responsible for destroying what we call the outliers. The people on the end of the spectrum who are creators. And I say that because I need you to think about that for a second. So when it comes to people in all societies, in all cultures, in all countries, what do governments do? We have sections of government like the FDA. The FDA's responsibility is not to keep our food safe. The Food and Drug Administration. They are not responsible for keeping our pharmaceuticals and drugs and consumable supplements safe. No, they are not here for that purpose. They are here just in case one of you creator people come up with a cure. If they say, look, this is a healthy, insert name here. Oops. Boy, it's not my day today, guys. Healthy food. Getting food directly from a farm. Wow, what a concept. Can't have that anymore, can we? They are here to squash anybody who wants to come out with a cure for disease and not a trying to do two things at once very late into my day. So they are here to make sure that you cannot cure anything. They need to have a certain amount of disease. See, the AI actually is responsible for ensuring that there is disease in a dark age, meaning we need to have death. We need to have X amount of people that must die every year. If you remember a few months back, I did a whole report on, how we calculate supply and demand in this world, down to the scanning of a tomato at the grocery store, and that would determine how many tomatoes we would need in the world. Well, the governments and the FDA and the CDC and the World Health Organization and the United Nations, and insert control structure here, and then of course above their head we would have lots of other folks, the World Council, New World Order. Not all these were humans. We also had galactic councils, and all of these were meant to enforce time of a dark age. So there had to be, for example, and I don't know all of the algorithms, I didn't bother picking them apart, I just tore them apart. So we had, say the AI would say we needed, 50% of the human population to have a disease. That could be anything from a cold to cancer to a terminal illness. Some are born with an illness. Some are born with, mental illness. Some are born with physical illness, such as cystic fibrosis, which is what my brother died of, and other people in, the world, other genetic illnesses. So there were varying degrees underneath that 50% as to what types of disease people needed to have at any given moment in time. Therefore, cures are not acceptable underneath that system. That has to go. Making sure that people do not have healthy sources of food that are actually filled with nutrients is not acceptable. Ensuring that food sources are poisonous and have things like antibiotics and hormones that will actually regulate how many sick children are born, or if you are able to reproduce at all. The population should not exceed X amount, because you'll have too many outliers in that case, because you'll always have those souls that are just going to shine so bright, you're going to spend all your time wearing them down. People like the Center for Disease Control are there whether they know it or not, and I'm not saying there's not good people that work in these places that have the best of intentions. But for the most part, if you are a scientist and you work in any of these industries, you've seen something is wrong. but maybe you just need that paycheck. You don't want to be blackballed from working at any company that produces any of these things, of course. The FDA also determines what is considered a drug. For example, did you know that sunscreen is considered a drug? It is a drug that you put on your skin. Therefore, it must be regulated by the FDA. The FDA has not approved a new sunscreen in almost 3 decades or 3.5 decades. Therefore, you're pretty much, doesn't matter what brand you're buying, unless you're making it for yourself, that you are putting poison on your skin. You have no choice and no option unless you want to turn into a tomato when you go to the beach. I mean, there's obviously many other reasons for sunscreen, but there are healthier options and things you can do yourself. But again, those people usually fall under the outliers. Most everybody else will go to the store and they will purchase something. There are some decent, I would say, natural options out there that are probably better, but that's up to the FDA. So interesting as to what, and maybe take some time if you're interested in this, look at what the FDA considers to be a drug and what they consider to be a cosmetic item or everything pretty much that you consume. A supplement is considered a drug, even though it's not. So determining healthy foods, what supplements can go into the market, what amounts of...
Children don't start wars, but they're the ones who suffer the most.
You have other regulatory agencies like the IFRA that will regulate things like essential oils and aromatherapy, how much you can use on your skin and in products, and they are pretty potent, so I understand that. But anyway, they are here to ensure you do not get healthy. Just remember that. In a dark age, that is why they get paid. So, same thing with the World Health Organization, same thing with the United Nations. Insert the Parks and Wildlife here. Parks and Wildlife, I know that a lot of people that work for these divisions in countries, tax organizations, that's a given. All the people that work in Parks and Wildlife, they really are concerned, a lot of them, about the lives of animals and the ecosystem of the parks. That doesn't mean those people are bad people. Boy, I'm doing terrible today. So when they, so don't take that the wrong way, but the Parks and Wildlife Division is actually made to ensure that we do not have too much oxygen on the planet, as an example. Oftentimes, things are declared national parks or UNESCO sites which are maintained by Parks and Wildlife in some way, shape, or form, divisions of government. But they are there to make sure that the minerals that are underneath there are untouched, or non-human type technologies that exist in some of those parks, like Yellowstone Park being one of those. So every structure that you see is part of a dark age system, which was made way up here, in the overlord section. So in addition to the overlords, they programmed then various artificial intelligence that helped them keep things running. And these are very powerful, quantum, omniversal, time-jumping, timeline-making systems, like very prolific. This is not, chatbot GPT style artificial intelligence in any way, shape, or form. Okay? So, making sure that money flowed to governments, flowed to the FDA the CDC, the World Health Organization, United Nations, Parks and Wildlife, in all of the organizations that are meant to keep Earth itself and humans into a dark age, had plenty of money, and it was free. All you had to do was show up. Now, same goes for militaries, and everybody wonders why things are breaking down. Well, because Artie over here, Art Intelligence, is breaking down too. So there are also different aspects other than money that were relevant to systems we live in. So we all know, it's in all of our religious books, when two or more gather in his name, that makes three. That's two of you in source. That makes a three co-creation situation, that it is done. That's what the books say. And that's true, because you have the energy of two humans and source all manifesting or putting energy behind the same thing. It's just like you and, say, your new business or a business you're trying to run. If you put your creative energy and you put your heart and soul into that business, it is more likely to flourish if you have a passion for it. Now, maybe you add 10 other people that share your passion, and they're all doing it. The energy that goes behind that in a golden age is supported. Now, for those of you that have passion and love and caring for the things you do in a job or in a business to make it flourish and grow, are pushing a boulder up a hill in a dark age, because the source energy that's behind you trickles in. It's still there, but it trickles in. You don't have a tidal wave of creative energy behind you, even if you feel it. And then you have a brick wall of dark energy that is going to meet you on the other side, that is going to make starting that business like, you're just pushing uphill. You also got to go to banks for that business, and getting that loan and figuring out financial statements and analyzing financial statements and 5-year projections and all the things that you have to do that maybe aren't in your wheelhouse. Maybe you're an artist and you just want to sell art projects or beautiful paintings or whatever it is you do, and you have 10 people with you that are all painters too, and you spend all day creating these amazing masterpieces and you want to share them. Why do you think that artists do not make any money, and this is in the dark age, until they pretty much die? There are a few exceptions out there, of course, but the big money doesn't come until they're no longer around. And of course, that money all goes to places like auction houses and collectors, who are usually part of the larger dark corporate system, like Rothschild families and other collectors of art. So in the old system, you as just a regular person, the majority person, and if you're a creator, even worse, would have a really difficult time getting through bank compliance if they didn't believe in your widget or your art project or whatever it is you're trying to do. You couldn't get the money to fund your project if you tried. Not only that, you think, well, they just don't want my widget out there because they have been selling substandard widgets, that fall apart, and that's why they're not funding me. But there's an energy behind you, and there's an energy in front of you in a dark age. Now, as it relates to the deep state and their corporate creations, there is an energy behind them. There is money, free money behind them. There was banks behind them. Heck, the banks are them. And it allowed for those corporations to flourish in a dark age, because why? Because they're Tyson Foods. They're Coca-Cola. And they're putting, actually at one point in time, pharmaceutical grade cocaine in there. Of course they want you to have that. They are helping the dark age system to flourish, grow, create death, create.
This Wi-Fi trick is helping thousands of people make money. If you have a Wi-Fi